Almost 1400 years ago, a man appeared on the Arabian Peninsula. He converted the Bedouin tribes to belief in one God. Through Muhammad, his people received a book, the Quran, that showed them the way and changed world history. He was also a warrior who won a remarkable string of victories. No political or religious movement has ever spread so quickly. Within decades, the exit of a few troublemakers from Mecca turned into a great Islamic empire. A remarkable new culture spread through North Africa, Asia Minor, and Southwest Europe, bringing new relationships with God and new ways of living. Europe of the Middle Ages was backward in comparison, but it learned, absorbing Arab medicine and science. This was the light from the East. Everything began in Mecca, a trading center on the edge of the desert. At God's command, it will become the center of a new religion. A message in Arabic is to unify the peoples of Arabia. It is carried out into the world in God's name. From Arabia, Islam surges into Europe. In the West, the advance is halted at the Pyrenees. Attacks on Rome are beaten off. But Muslims find a permanent place on the Italian islands and in Spain. On Spanish soil, the invaders create a culture that will go down in history as a golden age. Cordoba, in the year 875, strange activities arouse the curiosity of the neighbors. The man behind the hard work is Abbas ibn Firnas. He's a Moor, and he's already made a name for himself as a poet, mathematician, and inventor. Now, blacksmiths, tailors, and carpenters are putting together a revolutionary contraption from his plans. Ibn Firnas has worked on his secret plans for years. Inspired by the wings of a dove, he plans to overcome gravity. The dream of flight. Ibn Firnas is determined to make it a reality.
From the 9th to the 12th century, that is, in the early Middle Ages, Muslim science and philosophy were far ahead of the Christian West, and Muslims had an enormous desire to learn in those times. From Hellenistic culture, they learned philosophy, science, and medicine. They learned from the Indian and Persian cultures. And in the time of classical Islam, they represented the greatest and strongest culture in the world.
On the outskirts of this city, Ibn Firnas has been preparing his undertaking with great care. 600 years before Leonardo da Vinci, 1,000 years before the Wright brothers, Moorish Andalusia sees history's first documented attempt at human flight. He has carried out endless experiments before the first great trial, testing the size and shape of his wings. But one day, Ibn Firnas must put his ideas to the test. The flight of Ibn Firnas. He soars over many hundreds of meters. But as he comes down to land, he loses control. Ibn Firnas crashes and breaks both his legs. It's touch and go whether he'll live. But he's lucky. He lives in Cordoba. This city on the river Guadalquivir is the Muslim metropolis in Spain. Mighty defenses still tell of the time when Cordoba was the greatest city in Europe. The only city in the 10th century that could boast street lighting. 500,000 inhabitants are supplied with fresh running water from the mountains. Chronicles speak of 113,000 houses, 600 mosques, 300 baths, and 50 hospitals. Ibn Firnas, the pioneering aviator, is carried to one of them. The open wound is treated by a trained surgeon. The hospital apothecaries mix ointments to prevent infection. An infusion of herbs reduces the patient's pain. Arab doctors have developed a wide range of surgical instruments. They know basic rules of hygiene and observe them strictly. Ibn Firnas has a good chance of surviving his accident. With this systematic approach, Arab medicine is streets ahead of any other medicine of the times.
That was the great strength of the Arabs, the way they systematized everything. That gave them much more confidence in treating individual cases.
In the Christian West, things look different. Disease is seen as God's punishment, and healing is sought at the altar. Healing for the epidemics of plague that keep returning to Northern Europe, laying waste to entire populations. There's no knowledge of hygiene here. This is faith as medicine. The Isenheim altar at Colmar in France portrays medieval beliefs. They use healing herbs here too, but in a far less systematic way. Ribwort and verbena pitted against the plague. They're made into St. Anthony's wine. This monastery medicine is supposed to cure the mystery illnesses, helped by prayers and the will of God. But the effectiveness of the recipe is never tested. Because in the West, faith stands in for knowledge.
Role in translating the Greece medicine, Persian medicine, and Indian medicine into Arabic. Then this medical heritage translated into Latin and entered to Europe.
700 years after Ibn Firnas was healed, the apothecaries of the city of Milan in Italy donated a stained glass window to their cathedral. Not to honor a saint, but to commemorate the greatest physician of the Islamic world. Ibn Sina, Avicenna. Avicenna was born in Bukhara in today's Uzbekistan, a city with a reputation as a beacon of knowledge in the Islamic world. At the end of the 10th century, his thirst for knowledge brings Ibn Sina to the greatest libraries of the city. Inscriptions above the doors urge Muslims to pursue the search for wisdom. For Avicenna, that search becomes a way of life. He compiles a medical textbook, the Canon, the standard work for the training of doctors in the West for 500 years.
The Canon Medicinae became the basis of medical studies at the University of Paris. You could say that until the mid-16th century, medical studies were not possible without Avicenna.
For an injury like Ibn Firnas's, a fracture where the bone is exposed, Avicenna recommends wrapping the wound in an ointment of comfrey root, Symphytum medicinale. Modern-day researchers recreate his recipe. The root is peeled and then cut. It's crushed in a pestle and mortar. Then it's dried and finely ground. The Symphytum powder is mixed with hot tea that is soaked in the leaves of the comfrey plant. Placed on a saturated bandage, this mixture should not only prevent infection, but according to Avicenna, it should also speed up the healing of the broken bone.
The chapter on comfrey in Avicenna's book shows that he has thoroughly studied the Greek authorities. But Avicenna always goes one step further. He doesn't just copy things as they would in medieval Europe, but he thinks about it and then builds on it with new ideas.
And his treatments work. Today in the lab they can finally isolate the active ingredient, allantoin, a substance that restricts inflammation and encourages growth. It saved the life of Ibn Firnas and many after him, in East and West. But one more link is necessary for this learning to pass to the West. The Benedictine monastery at Silos in northern Spain holds a unique document that reveals how this knowledge was transferred. Understandably, it's kept under lock and key. But it isn't its message that makes it so precious. The Silos Missal is from the 11th century. It's a simple book of church services and hymns for every part of the year. It's significant because of the stuff it's made of.
La abadía de Silos conserva varios manuscritos de época que nosotros llamamos.
We have many manuscripts written in Gothic script, but it's not the fact that it's written in Gothic script that makes this so special. It's the fact that it's the oldest surviving European manuscript written not on parchment, but on paper.
In the West, paper is unknown.